I am Bill Carter, 70 years old this year. My life has never been glamorous. For the past 40 years, I've worked as a private driver for Tom Bradley, a wealthy tech entrepreneur in New York and my childhood best friend. I drove his Rolls-Royce, taking him to meetings, picking him up from the airport, and sometimes just sitting and listening as he talked about his million-dollar deals. The job wasn't easy, but I never complained. Because I had a reason to live, to breathe, to endure. Ryan, my son. Ryan isn't my biological child. Over 30 years ago, my wife Mary and I adopted him from an orphanage in Brooklyn. He was a scrawny kid with big round eyes, coughing constantly from asthma. His birth parents had abandoned him, leaving behind a sickly child no one wanted. But Mary and I were different. We saw in Ryan a spark, a chance to be parents, to love. We brought him home, cared for him through sleepless nights when he struggled to breathe, and held him when asthma attacks left him trembling. I worked day and night, and Mary took up sewing jobs, all to afford his medicine, hospital bills, and to give Ryan a decent life. We lived in a small apartment in Queens, but I always dreamed of a bigger home for Ryan. I wanted him to have a house, a future, a life where he wouldn't have to worry like we did. Mary and I saved every penny for going vacations and new clothes to set aside money for Ryan's college education. He excelled in school, graduated with an engineering degree, and I was so proud I wanted to shout it to the world. But my greatest joy was when Ryan stood on the graduation stage smiling and called me Dad. In that moment, every hardship, every sacrifice was worth it. Mary passed away 5 years ago from cancer. She left quietly, leaving me with an emptiness I could never fill. I moved into a small apartment attached to Tom's Long Island mansion to make driving him easier and to save money. Every month I sent money to Ryan to help him pay off student loans and support his new life. I didn't want him to struggle, didn't want him to face the hardships I did. But deep down, I knew I was also trying to fill the loneliness since Mary's departure. I'm old now, with white hair and a stooped back, but my heart still beats for Ryan. He's the reason I wake up every morning, the light in my darkest days. I've never told him he was adopted. To me, Ryan is my flesh and blood, my everything, and I've done all I could to give him a better life than mine. 10 years ago, Mary and I decided to buy a house for Ryan. He had just gotten engaged to Emma, a beautiful but sharp-witted girl, and we wanted to give them a solid start. We found a small house in New Jersey, 3 bedrooms with a lush green backyard, perfect for Ryan and Emma to build their family. The house wasn't cheap, and Mary and I had to take out a bank loan, use up all our savings, and even sell our engagement ring. But we didn't regret it. It was a gift for Ryan for his future. Time passed, Ryan and Emma got married and moved into the new house. Mary and I kept working, paying off the bank loan and sending money to support them. Every time I visited, I saw Ryan happy, the house filled with laughter. I thought I had done the right thing, but sometimes I noticed Emma's gaze. She looked at me as if I were just a driver, a hired hand, not Ryan's father. I brushed it off, thinking it was just my imagination. I didn't want to disrupt my son's happiness. One morning, while driving Tom, I felt a sharp pain in my chest. It came on so suddenly that my hands trembled on the steering wheel. I pulled over, gasping for breath, trying to hide it. Tom noticed immediately. "Bill, are you okay? You look pale." I forced a smile, saying I was just tired, but I knew something was wrong. The doctor confirmed I had a heart condition. It wasn't too serious if I rested, but I could no longer drive safely. "Mr. Carter, you need to slow down," the doctor said. "If you don't, you could be in danger." I sat in the clinic, hands covering my face, thinking about the future. I had worked my whole life, sacrificed everything, but now my body was betraying me. I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid of not being able to care for Ryan anymore. I told Tom about my condition. He looked at me, his eyes full of concern. "Bill, retire. You've done enough. Let me take care of things." I shook my head. Retiring meant losing my income, losing my ability to support Ryan. But Tom wouldn't take no for an answer. One afternoon, he called me into his office and handed me an envelope. "This is my gift to you," he said. "Company stocks worth $3 million. Don't refuse, Bill. You deserve this." My hands trembled as I held the envelope. $3 million, a sum I had never dared to dream of. I looked at Tom, tears welling up. "Tom, I can't," he cut me off. "You're my friend, Bill. You've been by my side for 40 years. Let me do this for you." I hugged him, unable to speak. It was the first time I'd cried since Mary's death. I didn't tell anyone about the stocks, not even Ryan. I wanted to keep it a secret, to use the money to live comfortably, to enjoy my remaining days. I imagined buying a small house, living near Ryan, helping him care for the grandchild soon to be born. I dreamed of peaceful days where I no longer had to worry or sacrifice, but I didn't know that dream was about to shatter. I never expected that after everything I'd done, Ryan, the son I loved more than life itself, would turn his back on me. That day, I stood in front of the house in New Jersey, the one Mary and I had poured our entire lives into buying for Ryan. I arrived with a small suitcase, a few clothes, and a glimmer of hope. The doctor had told me I needed to rest, that I could no longer drive, and I thought this was my chance to be closer to Ryan. Emma, my daughter-in-law, was about to give birth to their first child. I wanted to help, to hold my grandchild, to feel a bit of family warmth after the lonely years since Mary's passing. I knocked on the door, my heart pounding. Ryan opened it, his smile faint. "Dad, what are you doing here?" His voice lacked the warmth I had hoped for. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I've retired, Ryan. My health isn't good. I want to stay here for a while to help you and Emma with the baby." I waited for a hug, a word of welcome. But Ryan just looked at me, his brows furrowing. "Wait a moment, let me talk to Emma." He closed the door, leaving me standing on the porch, my suitcase at my feet. The October wind was bitterly cold, cutting through my thin jacket. I heard whispers inside, Emma's sharp voice, Ryan's quieter one, as if he were trying to persuade her. Then the door opened, but it wasn't Ryan. It was Emma, wearing a maternity dress, hands on her hips, her eyes icy. "Dad, Bill, we don't need help," she said bluntly. "The baby will have a professional nanny. You don't need to stay here." I was stunned but forced to smile. "Emma, I don't want to be a burden. I just want to be near family, to help however I can." But Emma cut me off. "Dad, let's be honest. You're a driver, not a nanny. We need you to work, to earn money, to provide financial support. Staying here would just be an extra burden." My chest tightened, not from my heart condition, but from Emma's words. Driver, burden. Those words sliced into me like a knife. I had sacrificed my entire life for Ryan, for this house, and now I was seen as useless, unwanted. I looked past Emma and saw Ryan standing behind her, head bowed, silent. "Ryan," I called, my voice trembling. "What do you think?" He looked up, his eyes avoiding mine. "Emma's right, Dad. You retired too soon. Right now, we need money more than your presence." I turned away, not wanting them to see my tears. I dragged my suitcase and walked down the path to the street. I had no home of my own, nowhere to go, but I'd rather sleep on the street than stay where I was despised. That night, I returned to the small apartment attached to Tom's mansion, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. The image of Ryan, head bowed, silent, haunted me. He had changed, or perhaps I had never truly understood my son. A few days later, I received a message from Emma. It wasn't an apology, but a demand. "Dad, find a job. We need money to buy a new car for the baby." I read the message, my hands shaking. I called Ryan, hoping for an honest conversation, but the person who answered was Emma's mother, Linda, a prominent lawyer in Manhattan. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice cold as stone. "Ryan's busy. I'm speaking on his behalf. You should find a job, or better yet, move into a nursing home. Don't bother our family." I was speechless. Nursing home. They wanted to cast me aside as if I were an old, useless piece of furniture. I hung up, my heart aching, not from my condition, but from the harsh truth. My son's family didn't need me. I tried one more time. I refused to believe that Ryan, the son I loved so dearly, could truly turn his back on me. I drove to New Jersey despite the increasingly frequent chest pains. I wanted to look into Ryan's eyes to hear him say that he was still my son, but this time things were even worse. Ryan opened the door, his eyes filled with irritation. "What are you doing here again, Dad? I've made it clear." I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. "Ryan, I have nowhere else to go. I just want to be near you, near my grandchild. I'm not asking for anything." But Ryan cut me off, his tone harsh. "Dad, enough. You retired, you have no money, and now you want to mooch off us? You're a driver. What can you even contribute? Go find a job or move to a nursing home. Don't embarrass us." I stood frozen, as if slapped across the face. Mooch. Embarrass. Those words echoed in my mind, tearing my heart apart. I looked at Ryan, searching for any trace of the little boy who once held my hand, who called me Dad with a radiant smile. But that boy was gone. In his place stood a stranger, swayed by the pressures of Emma and her mother, Linda, blinded by ambition and contempt. "Ryan," I said, my voice choking, "have you forgotten everything your mother and I did for you? This house, your tuition, everything, and you promised to take care of me." Ryan scoffed, a cold laugh I'd never heard from him before. "Promised? Don't be delusional, Dad. This house is mine legally. You have no claim here. Just go. Don't make things worse." I turned away, tears streaming down my cheeks. I didn't want Ryan to see my weakness, but my heart felt shattered. I drove back to Long Island, my mind blank. That night I opened the safe and took out a document. It was the contract Ryan had signed 10 years ago when we gifted him the house. I still remember that day vividly, when we finalized the paperwork to put the house in Ryan's name. When he held the keys in his hand, his eyes sparkled as if they contained the entire sky. "Dad, Mom, I don't know how to thank you," he said, hugging us tightly. I smiled, patting his shoulder, but a faint unease stirred in my heart. Back then, Ryan was still so young, impulsive, and naive. I feared he might not fully grasp the value of what we had done for him. Mary shared the same concern. She gripped my hand tightly under the table, whispering, "Bill, we have to make sure Ryan doesn't forget what his parents have done for him." I nodded silently. We didn't want him to take our gift for granted, or to forget the years we had sacrificed for him. I proposed a separate contract, not because I distrusted Ryan, but because I wanted him to understand responsibility. The contract required Ryan to care for Mary and me in our old age. If he failed to do so, ownership of the house would revert to me. The terms were clear, drafted by a lawyer and properly notarized. I explained to Ryan, "Son, your mom and I don't ask for much. Just that you remember us, that you take care of us when we need you. That's all." Ryan nodded, signing without hesitation. "Dad, I promise I won't let you down." He smiled, and I believed him. I believed in my son's promise. The contract was stored safely in my safe. I never thought I'd need to use it, but I kept it as a reminder, a final safeguard for Mary's and my sacrifices. I had given Ryan everything, and all I asked was that he keep his word. The words on the paper were still clear, Ryan's signature still intact, the promise to care for me, the commitment to not be unfilial. I clutched the document, a mix of anger and pain surging within me. Ryan had betrayed me. He had broken his promise, and he had broken my heart. I thought of Mary. How heartbroken she would be if she were alive to see Ryan like this. I thought of the years we worked ourselves to exhaustion, the nights I stayed awake worrying about Ryan, the times Mary sewed until her fingers bled to save money. All for what? Contempt and ingratitude. I couldn't let it end like this. Not for my sake, but for Mary, for our sacrifices. I called an old lawyer, the one who had helped draft the contract. "Mr. Carter," he said after hearing my story, "your contract is ironclad. If Ryan has violated it, you can reclaim the house, but are you sure? He's your son." I paused, looking at a photo of Ryan and me from when he was young, when he hugged me with a beaming smile. "He was my son," I said, my voice trembling. "Not anymore." I decided to sue Ryan, Not because I wanted the house, but because I wanted him to understand kindness is not something to be trampled on. I gathered evidence, messages from Emma and Ryan, neighbors' testimonies about how they treated me, bank statements showing the loan payments for the house. Each piece of evidence felt like a stab, but I didn't stop. I had sacrificed my entire life for Ryan, and now I had to protect my own worth. Deep inside, a quiet pain lingered. Ryan wasn't just my son, he was the child I chose, the child I loved despite everything. But he chose to betray me. And now, I would show him the consequences of his ingratitude. 2 weeks later, I stood in a courtroom clutching the old yellowed contract that had aged with time. The New Jersey courtroom was packed that day, filled with unfamiliar faces, but my eyes were fixed on one person, Ryan, my son. He sat across the room, shoulders slumped, his gaze avoiding mine. Beside him was Emma, her lips pressed tightly in tension, and Linda, her mother, dressed in an expensive suit, her face cold and sharp, her eyes like daggers. Linda was Ryan's lawyer, and I knew she was confident of victory. She wasn't just any lawyer. She was one of Manhattan's most renowned, having won dozens of high-profile cases. Perhaps that's why the courtroom was so crowded. Everyone wanted to witness a trial featuring her. But I wasn't afraid. I had the truth on my side, and I had Mary in my heart, urging me to be strong. My lawyer, Mr. Harris, stood up, his voice calm but incisive. Your Honor, Mr. Bill Carter sacrificed his entire life to buy the house in New Jersey for his son, Ryan Carter. He required Ryan to sign a contract pledging to care for his parents in their old age in exchange for ownership of the house. This contract was legally notarized. However, Ryan has violated this commitment, refusing to care for his father, insulting and belittling him. We request that the court revoke Ryan's ownership and return the house to Mr. Bill Carter. Mr. Harris presented the evidence one by one. The contract bearing Ryan's signature, bank statements showing the loan payments Mary and I struggled to cover for 10 years, text messages from Ryan calling me a freeloader, and neighbors' testimonies recounting how Emma and Ryan had driven me away. Each piece of evidence was like a knife, not only cutting into my heart but also chipping away at Linda's confidence. I saw her frown, flipping through her papers, whispering urgently to Ryan. Linda rose, her voice resounding like a rehearsed speech. Your Honor, Mr. Carter is exploiting an outdated contract to strip his son of his rightful property. Ryan has lived in this house for 10 years, renovated it, and paid its taxes. Mr. Carter has no right to reclaim it over minor family disputes. Furthermore, as a driver, he lacks the financial means to maintain the property. His claim is unreasonable and driven by vengeance. My hands clenched, my face burning with anger. Minor disputes. Linda had no idea about the sleepless nights I spent worrying for Ryan, the days Mary sewed until her fingers bled to save money, or the heart pains that made me think I might die. I wanted to stand and shout at her, but Mr. Harris placed a hand on my shoulder, shaking his head. Let the court decide, Bill. The trial lasted 3 days, each one a battle. Linda tried to argue that the contract was invalid, claiming I had gifted the house to Ryan without conditions. But Mr. Harris countered every point, highlighting the contract's clear terms, its legal notarization, and Ryan's unfilial behavior. An unexpected witness appeared. Mrs. Susan, Ryan's neighbor who had seen Emma chase me out of the house. Mr. Bill just wanted to help, she told the court. But Emma and Ryan treated him like a stranger. I heard Ryan call him a failure. It was shameful. I watched Ryan as Mrs. Susan spoke. He stared at the floor, his hands gripping the chair tightly. Emma whispered something to Linda, but Linda shook her head, her eyes beginning to waver. I knew she was realizing she was losing. On the day of the verdict, the judge, an older woman, looked directly at me. Mr. Carter, she said, I see in you a father who sacrificed everything for his son. Your contract is clear and the evidence is compelling. Ryan Carter has violated his commitment to care for his father when he needed it most. The court hereby revokes Ryan Carter's ownership of the house in New Jersey and transfers ownership to Mr. Bill Carter. The gavel struck, shattering the tense silence. I sat there, tears streaming down my cheeks. It wasn't about reclaiming the house, it was about defending my worth, Mary's worth, and the years we lived for Ryan. I glanced at Linda. She stood frozen, her face pale, clutching her briefcase. Ryan buried his face in his hands, his shoulders trembling. Emma gripped his arm, her eyes blazing with anger, as if blaming the world. As I left the courtroom, I heard Linda shouting at Ryan in the hallway. "You made me look like a fool, a simple case, and I lost because you couldn't keep your mouth shut." I didn't look back. I stepped into the sunlight, taking a deep breath, feeling lighter for the first time in months. But the pain in my heart lingered. Ryan hadn't just lost the house. He had lost me. The house in New Jersey is mine now, but I don't want to live there. It holds too many memories. Ryan's smile when he received the keys, Mary's whisper of "We did it, Bill," and the sting of Ryan's insults as he drove me away. I rented the house out, using the income to cover medical bills and staying temporarily in Tom's apartment. But I know that the lives of Ryan, Emma, and Linda have been turned upside down. Ryan and Emma no longer have a place to call home. They were forced to move into Linda's Manhattan apartment, a luxurious but cramped space for three, especially with Emma nearing childbirth. I heard from an acquaintance that Linda is far from pleased. She's used to living alone, free to do as she pleases, and now she's stuck hosting her daughter and son-in-law. What surprised me most, though, was how Linda treated Ryan. She didn't hide her contempt. "You're a burden," she told him during a dinner, according to a mutual friend. "You made me lose that case, tarnished my reputation. My colleagues are laughing at me because of you." Ryan, once a confident engineer, now lives under constant stress. Linda calls him useless, the reason for her humiliation. Each word from her is like a knife, eroding Ryan's self-esteem. Emma, who initially stood by her husband, has grown distant. She blames Ryan for not being strong enough, not capable enough to protect their family. Arguments have erupted, and I heard they sleep in separate rooms, no longer speaking as they once did. Their marriage, once Ryan's pride, is now like a cracked glass waiting to shatter. I don't take joy in learning this. Despite the pain Ryan caused me, he's still the child I held through asthma attacks, the one I taught to tie his shoes. I considered reaching out to say I forgive him, that we could start over. But then I remember his words. "You're a failure, Dad." I recall Emma's cold stare, Linda's haughty tone. I can't go back. Not because I don't love Ryan, but because I have to love myself. One evening I sat in the apartment looking at a photo of Mary and me from our youth. She was smiling, her eyes bright like stars. "Mary," I whispered, "what should I do?" I imagined her taking my hand as she did when we faced hardships. "Bill," she'd say, "you gave Ryan everything. Now it's time to live for yourself." I nodded, tears falling. Mary was always right. I decided not to let the past chain me down. Ryan and Emma must face the consequences of their actions. Linda, with her damaged reputation, will have to deal with the skeptical glances of colleagues and clients. As for me, I'll move forward. I have the $3 million from Tom's stocks, a chance to live the life Mary and I once dreamed of. 3 months after the lawsuit, I sold the stocks Tom had gifted me, netting $3 million. I used $1.5 million to buy a seaside villa in the Hamptons. Every day I stand on the balcony watching the waves crash against the white sand. My new villa is nestled among green trees, sunlight streaming through the glass windows, illuminating the rooms. It's not ostentatious, but it's enough to give me the peace Mary and I always longed for. Each morning I brew coffee, sit listening to the waves, and for the first time in my life, I live for myself. Buying the house wasn't easy. I'm no expert in real estate, and my heart still aches when I think of Ryan. But Ethan, Emma's younger brother, helped me. He's a young, enthusiastic real estate agent, completely unlike his sister. Ethan took me to view properties, patiently explaining everything from property taxes to heating systems. "Mr. Bill," he said with a smile, "this house was made for you. You deserve it." I looked into Ethan's eyes and saw a sincerity I couldn't find in Ryan or Emma. I nodded, signed the contract, and began a new chapter. I didn't expect Ethan to inadvertently shake up Ryan's life. One evening, when I invited Ethan to the villa to thank him, he shared that he'd slipped up while talking to Emma. "I was just bragging about selling a beautiful Hamptons villa," Ethan said, his voice tinged with regret. "I didn't know she'd ask for details. When I said it was sold to you, Emma was stunned. Then she told Ryan, 'I'm sorry, Mr. Bill, I didn't mean to.'" I looked at Ethan, my heart heavy. I hadn't wanted Ryan to know about the villa, to know I was living better than ever. But now, the secret was out. I imagined Ryan hearing the news, his face twisting with bitterness, realizing that the father he called a freeloader now owned a seaside villa, living a life he could never touch. I didn't feel joy or sorrow, I just felt empty. Ryan had chosen his path, and now he had to face the consequences. A few days later, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. It was Ryan. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the screen. Part of me wanted to answer, to believe he was calling to apologize, to mend our broken bond. But another part, the part scarred by his insults, reminded me to stay strong. I didn't pick up. Ryan left a voicemail, his voice trembling. "Dad, I heard about your new house. I want to see you, please." I listened to the message 3 times, my heart aching. But I didn't call back. Not because I was angry, but because I knew. Ryan wasn't sorry, he was just desperate. Ethan later shared that Ryan was living in hell. Linda, Emma's mother, relentlessly mocked him, calling him a failure for losing the house, for losing his dignity. Emma, now a mother to their newborn, grew even more distant, blaming Ryan for not being able to provide for their family. Ethan said Ryan was close to breaking, drinking heavily, and constantly fighting with Emma. I listened, my heart heavy. I had once dreamed of a happy family for Ryan, but now he was left with only loneliness and regret. I turned back to the sea, the waves still crashing steadily. I thought of Mary, of the nights she held my hand, saying we'd overcome any hardship for Ryan. But now I realized I couldn't save Ryan from himself. I had given him everything and he threw it away. This villa, this new life is my reward, not my revenge. But I know for Ryan it will be a deep, piercing wound. One afternoon, as I was painting on the terrace, a new hobby I'd taken up to soothe my soul, the doorbell rang. I wiped my hands and descended the stairs, thinking it might be Ethan or a delivery person. But when I opened the door, I froze. Ryan stood there, his hair disheveled, eyes sunken with dark circles, his shirt wrinkled. He looked at me, his lips trembling. "Dad," he said, his voice hoarse. "I'm sorry, I was wrong, please. Give me a chance." I stood still, my hand gripping the doorknob tightly. The image of young Ryan, frail and wheezing from asthma, flashed in my mind. But then I remembered the Ryan of today, the one who called me a failure, who let Emma and Linda humiliate me. "Ryan," I said, my voice colder than I intended. "What do you want?" He stepped forward, his eyes red and teary. "I can't take it anymore, Dad. Linda treats me like garbage. Emma, she doesn't love me anymore. I've lost everything, the house, my family, my self-respect. I know I was wrong for treating you badly. Please help me. Let me stay here or give me some money. I promise I'll change." I looked at Ryan, my heart feeling as if it were being squeezed. Part of me wanted to hug him, to say everything would be okay, that I was still his father. But another part, the part that had endured his betrayal, reminded me that Ryan's apology wasn't born of love but of desperation. I took a deep breath, stepped outside, and closed the door behind me. "Ryan," I said, "you had your chance. You promised to take care of me, but you chose to turn your back. Now you want me to save you, but I can't, not because I don't love you, but because I have to love myself." Ryan fell to his knees, clutching my legs, sobbing. "Dad, I'm begging you, I have no one left." I wanted to lift him up, but I stood still, tears rolling down my cheeks. I knew if I gave in, I'd sacrifice again, putting Ryan above myself. And I couldn't do that anymore, not after everything. I looked into Ryan's eyes, my voice trembling but resolute. Ryan, there's something you need to know. You're not my biological son. Your mother and I adopted you from an orphanage in Brooklyn when you were a baby, sick with asthma, abandoned by your birth parents. I loved you as my own, sacrificed my entire life to give you everything. But you betrayed that love. You may not owe me blood, but you owed me a promise. And you broke it. Ryan looked up, his face pale as if I'd struck him. I'm adopted, he mumbled, his voice breaking. I nodded, tears falling. Yes, but to me, you were always my son, until you chose not to be. I turned back into the house, closed the door, and didn't look back. I heard Ryan crying outside, but I didn't open the door. I couldn't. Not because I hated him. I'm sorry, but I need to protect my heart. That night, I sat on the balcony staring at the dark sea. I thought of Ryan, the boy I'd saved from the orphanage, and the man who had hurt me. I thought of Mary, of our sacrifices. I had given Ryan everything, but I couldn't give him gratitude. I blocked Ryan's number, Emma's, and Linda's. The final thread had snapped, and for the first time, I felt free. Now at 70, I lived the days I never dared to dream of. Painting, playing golf, joining a community club where I've made new friends. They call me Bill, the sea painter, and I laugh, my heart light. I no longer have contact with Ryan, Emma, or Linda. The truth about Ryan's adoption severed the last tie. I don't hate him. I only regret that he didn't cherish what Mary and I sacrificed. Once at the golf club, a friend asked, Bill, do you regret adopting Ryan? I looked out at the sea, remembering the smile of young Ryan the day I brought him home from the orphanage. No, I said, smiling. I don't regret it. I only wish I'd protected my own worth sooner. Mary remains in my heart. Every night I look at her photo on the table and whisper, Mary, I did it. I imagine her smiling, holding my hand as she used to. I've learned that kindness shouldn't come at the cost of self-destruction. I gave Ryan everything, but now I choose myself. Today I received an invitation to a community art exhibition. My painting of the sea has been chosen to hang in the center. I stand before the mirror, adjusting my suit jacket, smiling at the silver-haired man looking back. He's no longer the driver who slaved for his son. He's Bill Carter, a man who found happiness in the simple things. The sea still crashes outside, steady and endless. I step out of the house, breathing in the salty air. My new life begins here, and this time I'll live for myself, for Mary, for the dreams we once forgot. I close the door, my heart at peace. My journey at last has found its shore.